Imagine getting 30 to 40 times more views on your video, all because you made some simple changes to your thumbnail. Well, if you actually want that to happen, you're going to want to listen to this insane case study from YouTube strategist Patty Galloway. Let me click play here so you can take a listen.
We've had a situation as well where we worked with this creator. His name was Tim Gabe, and he had a video which was 6 UI hacks or something like that, user interface hacks for website design. And someone on my team helped advise him on just like a tiny thumbnail change. And the difference between the thumbnail he had before and the thumbnail he had afterwards was, I would say maybe it was like 30, 40% better, the one afterwards. Like it wasn't a huge difference. But the video ended up getting 40 times more views per day, just because it was a little bit better with a lot more people, and then YouTube just snowballed it from there. And that's what breaks my brain. And I think what a lot of creators like fail to realize is how much of a difference those small details can make. Mm-hmm. So often, like, I think people are looking for this complete like tear down and like everything's wrong. We need to build it up again with this new strategy. Sometimes it is about just like realizing where you need to invest more time and focus and just improving those little details.
I don't know about you, but my mind went when I heard this, because literally you could just be a few changes away from your video blowing up exponentially. Like you just have to potentially fix a few things to get similar results, which is why I wanted to make this video and cover some of the common mistakes you're probably making in your thumbnails, even though they might be small. They are mistakes that are affecting the amount of views you're getting. I see these all the time when I'm doing one-on-one consultations with people, and I want to expose them to you so you can fix them, increase the how good your thumbnail is by a few percentage points, and that could result in your video taking off. So let's dive into each of these. Now, mistake number one is having your subject far away. And this applies to both people. It applies to maybe gear you're reviewing or something you want your viewers to see, which in this video, it's networking tips for business owners. What does a business owner need to see? What jeans and what shirt you're wearing? Like that doesn't add any context unless you're like a dad's fashion channel here. Like that's not going to matter. But what this also does is number one, it makes it harder for viewers to see your face, and people really connect with faces. They react to the emotions on your face. It's a really great way to grab a viewer's attention. Or if it is a recognizable product you are talking about, if they can't really see it and they can't really tell it's that product, that's also not going to grab their attention. So you never want to do something like this unless you are running like a fashion channel or something like that, where you want to show your outfit, and the outfit is what's going to grab the viewer's attention and cause them to click. Otherwise, zoom yourself in. I want to be able to see your face, the emotions on it, really up close. That's what's going to really help make your thumbnail stand out. Now, I will say this guy does have a pretty serious face on his face, which you can sometimes go for that, but I'd also throw in there, maybe a mistake is not having a good emotion on your face. Because if this guy's going to do a video on this, he might as well smile and look happy and like he wants to be there. Unless this is more of like a serious kind of strategy video where you may want a more professional, focused face. And I think something important to realize is that from birth, we are designed to pay attention to the emotions on our parents' face, on the face of other people. If they're scared, if they're making a shocked face, that baby's going to react. It's going to probably start crying. And even as adults, if we see someone with a terrified face, we're instantly like, is there something wrong? Is something going on? We're instantly paying attention to that emotion. So the emotion on your face can actually grab a viewer's attention, especially on a busy homepage. Mistake number 3 that you should avoid is poorly lit photos. And this is one I made often. Here's a look at one of my videos I made back in the day when there was still hair on my head. Where'd that go? Now, outside of this being a very distracting background and me using green text, which is a future mistake we're going to talk about, look at this photo. This is not a very well lit, bright photo. Like it looks like I just have like one light on this side and then this is kind of lighting up my face, but it's very dark. Like even my shirt, you can see how dark it is and how hard it is to see. And so ideally for thumbnails, you'll want to get like softbox lights, which you might already use for filming, but some very light, soft lighting for your face. If you don't have softbox lighting, you could always use a window or put like a sheet up, which is going to give you a very balanced white light. And then I'd recommend using some kind of photo editor on mobile. There is Lightroom, which is actually free on mobile. There's other photo editors out there that let you adjust the brightness and contrast and really get into adjusting the colors to really make yourself pop. But you don't want something that's low quality. You really want to make sure that you have a nice, bright, sharp image. Moving on, another mistake I commonly see is just really bad composition. And what I mean by that is I oftentimes see people where they have a photo of themselves and this big gap above them, or they're awkwardly too far over to the right. Now, in a future video, we will go deeper into composition and the weight of an image and different tactics you can use, but to put it simply, you just want to grab yourself and make sure that the top of your head is at the top of the thumbnail. That is going to make your thumbnail look so much better. The other thing I recommend doing is inside at least Canva, you can do this. You can go over to File, you can go to Settings, and you can click Add Guides. And we want to add a 3x3 grid. We'll click Add Guides, and that's going to add this to our thumbnail temporarily. And what this is going to do is really help us align our image. And one of the rules with photo composition is you really want your subject to be aligned with the intersecting points on the 3x3 grid. So these four squares here where the lines intersect, that is where you want your subject to be, right in that middle. So what you can even do, and what a lot of people do, is align the eye right down the middle there. And that really helps draw the viewer's eye to it. And you can also notice that the text is lined up with that section as well. So if I click off this here, you can see it really helps balance the image and draws your eye. Now, sometimes I do push this rule. So for like example, with this one, you can see his eye isn't fully lined up right at that intersecting point, but I feel like this still looks good. So, rules are meant to be broken, but generally I would say let's aim to have your subject's eye in that intersecting point or around that area, just so it looks very pleasing. And then once you are done aligning things, you can go into File, Settings, and then just click Clear Guides. Now the guides are off and we're good. The next mistake is putting text in the bottom right corner. And the reason why you don't want to do this is because on YouTube, there is a timestamp that'll be in the bottom right side of your image. Now, I will admit, YouTube has gotten a bit better at making that timestamp smaller and more in the corner, but there are still some cases where the timestamp could block your text if your text is on the far right side. So you can see Make 7,000 Daily, it is blocked here because of the timestamp. It's going to be harder for viewers to read. So I always recommend putting your subject on the right side and then your text and whatever else on the left side. That way you don't have to worry about making sure it stays above this little section. It's just always going to be covered because you'll be over there. Continuing on, let's talk about colored text as well as weird fonts with these two thumbnails. And here's the general rule I like to tell people. Unless you are a graphic designer and know how to use color, only use white text. Just stick with that, make it simple. Because when you start to get into these colored text and things like that, you have things like this where the text is really hard to read because it's gray text with this white outline and it just doesn't look good. And when you think about the internet, like almost all the text you read is black text on a white background or white text on a black background. So just make things easy for people to read. So I recommend using bold fonts. Like this text is bold, which is great. I recommend sticking with bold text. And I usually like to go for like a basic bold text. I'll put some recommendations up on screen for text that I think is pretty good to use generally. And that's also where the other problem comes in, which is the weird font situation. Like this is cursive font, which to be completely honest is harder for the younger generation to read. And it's also not something you're going to be able to read really fast if there's a bunch of thumbnails all competing for viewers' attention. So stay away from those, stay away from comic fonts or different things like that. Unless you're a comic channel, stay away from comic fonts because fonts do communicate something. Strangely enough, the way we write letters has an effect on how we perceive that information. So normally I'd say just go for basic text. So that way you're not like sending a weird message, I guess you could say. Up next, we have the mistake of using too much text. Now you got to think, people are going to glance at your thumbnail. They are looking for half a second. They are trying to make a decision on what to watch. They're scrolling, or they're looking across a computer screen. There's multiple thumbnails all competing. They're not going to sit there and read. So I would recommend sticking with like 2 to 5 words maximum. Don't go above that, because otherwise you get into situations like this where it's like, if you follow my advice, I guarantee that you'll make money. Untold strategies number 1. Like for one, Untold Strategies number 1 is not needed. We can remove that. We don't need if you follow my advice here. And probably the simplified version of this could be make money guaranteed. If we wanted to really roll with that idea, I think that would be a very clickbaity video. Who knows, maybe the like FTC or something's going to come after you for that. But like make money guaranteed sums up this entire point. So really find a way to compress your text. And I would also focus the text message on either the solution the viewer wants, or you are provoking them to click through curiosity. So those would be the two things I would make sure your text does. You don't want to just repeating your title. Unless your video is about a solution the viewer wants, then maybe have the text show, target that solution. Similarly, having too many elements is also a problem. Going back to that glance test where half a second I'm going to be looking at this thumbnail, there is way too much going on here. Not only we have 5 photos, but technically there's more than 5 dishes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus text. And some of this text is actually blocking me from seeing the healthy food meals. And then also this white text on a yellow background, like it doesn't really pop or stand out. Like normally for white text, I'd recommend having like a shadow or like a black background, something that really makes the white text pop. And usually the rule with thumbnails is something called the 3-element rule, which is you can only have 3 elements or less in your thumbnail. So picture having a person in your thumbnail, maybe some text, and then a graphic element or a photo or something like that. Which means that if a viewer glances, they can really quickly understand what the video is about and if it's something they actually want to click on. And even just thinking about this concept, healthy food, is it really important? Does having all these images really add to that health, just this question here? Like, I think we could easily show just an apple on a white background. Like that communicates the idea way more than these fancy dishes that we don't even know if they're necessarily healthy or not. Like we can't figure that out in half a second versus an apple, which most people know as healthy food, and then having the text off to the side. So literally just take a few seconds, figure out how do I simplify this? How do I put this into just a 3-element image? That's going to serve you really well. Now this next one is actually pretty interesting because the next mistake is making one thumbnail. And I know what you're probably thinking, Colin, I'm making one video. Why do I need to make more than one thumbnail? And the reason why is because when you make one thumbnail, it might be good, it might be decent, but when you force yourself to make 2 or 3 more, it forces you to get creative. It forces you to try and figure out another way to present the idea. And oftentimes when that happens, that second or third thumbnail is 10 times better than what you started with. And you really have to remember that if no one clicks on your video, no one's going to see the hours of time and effort you've put into making that content. So why would you just bet everything on the first thumbnail you make? Like it's just not realistic. Put actual time and effort into getting people to click, coming up with different versions and seeing which one is the best, because the average creator only spends 30 to 60 minutes on a thumbnail. So if you go above and beyond what the average creator does, you're going to have above average videos, and those are going to stand out to your audience. Now, this next mistake is probably going to ruffle some feathers, but I think it's a mistake to use YouTube's test and compare feature with thumbnails, which is kind of funny to bring up after saying make multiple thumbnails, but don't test multiple thumbnails with YouTube's tool. And the reason why is oftentimes in that 7 to 14 days, there's just not enough time to gather the data needed to make a real decision, especially if you're a beginner. And I even have cases on my own channel where the thumbnail I made didn't do well in the beginning and is now doing insanely well on my channel. So I think what's better to do is to pick what you think is the best thumbnail. You know your audience, you know what might intrigue them, go with that thumbnail, and then give your video like 2 weeks to just sit there with that thumbnail. And then you can grab the data from YouTube Studio and see what are my impressions, what is my click-through rate, what does this look like? If you have pretty much flat impressions, there's obviously a problem with people clicking on your video. And then I'd recommend switching out with another one, maybe update that title, and do all those things then. And then you can also monitor that next thumbnail's performance over the next week or two. See if it helps. Do impressions go up? Does your click-through rate go up? All those different things. And technically, you can keep updating your thumbnail and title for as long as that video exists, trying to help it take off. Because guess what? YouTube doesn't give up on your videos. But don't use test and compare. Do something else. And finally, the last mistake that you are probably making is not being a part of our newsletter, where I literally send you regular tips and tactics to improve your thumbnails. If you actually want to get your videos clicked on, you definitely want to be a part of our email newsletter. The link for that is in the description of this video, and I hope to see you guys over there.